to go back to you saying Beatles is probably your favorite band.
Yeah.
Right. We've had a couple of discussions on the podcast where Joe we did it I think mainly we had a big conversation about it on our Christmas one, and then also we did a whole episode on it where we're saying that would Beatles have made it today, and like are they like overrated because they might not have? But like what I want to hear your opinion on it, because it's something that we always try and refer back to the like topics we spoke about before. But Joe has made it very fucking clear that he thinks they're one of the most overrated bands ever.
See, you've got to think of before the Beatles before you think of the Beatles. Because like at the time, like remember I read like that there was, when they were breaking through in the Cavern Club, that rock and roll music wasn't even allowed in the Cavern Club.
Fuck.
And like and they had to then, like if you listen anything before the Beatles, is people like, you know, Jerry and the Pacemakers that they probably like, you know, got a few stuff off, you know, but there was nobody that ever like kind of, you know, like he loved Chuck Berry, didn't he, John Lennon and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He kind of took that rock and roll and like that it became a norm, which is quite hard, because as big as Chuck Berry is, like it was always like you know, seeing as an American thing, it was never big in England. It was never going to be.
Yeah.
And still, you think today, like, maybe they wouldn't have made it today, but everybody sounds like they do now because of the Beatles. So that's why they wouldn't have made it.
Yeah.
I think that's always been my point, is not that they're not a great band and a very influential band, but that I came into the Beatles quite late and sort of went back and listened to their stuff, and I just didn't fall in love with them. I wasn't as impressed as everyone seems to be. And I think maybe that's, for me, like without context, without thinking about how influential they were and what they started, when I was just listening to them, I was like, yeah, it's good. And I understand how important they were. Mm-hmm. But for me, it just it's not as good. And that's why we sort of wrapped around that point of, if they released those early songs now compared to the standard of some up and coming music, would they stand out as much? And obviously I think the answer is no to that, which is sort of my main point, as well as like, I understand their influence, and obviously you can never remove context, so it makes a lot of sense. But for me, like, because I don't really hold it as much, I think they're a bit overrated. But
I think it would have been interesting to see like what happened, like, you know, as they were moving through, like, you know, Sgt. Pepper and stuff, like doing revolutionary stuff in the studio, like that people had never done before. I mean, credit George Martin as well with them. But they were doing stuff that like people had never ever done in like the world.
Crazy.
Like you know, like double tracks and stuff, like, and you know, like taped backwards and shit. You know, like what people have never like once went, you know, it'd be pretty cool if that happened.
Yeah.
Now, they kind of revolutionized recording, where now it seems like the norm.
Yeah,
it's just the music that's like became that. It's like, if you think about the Beatles, like the sound just kept changing like every album. If you think of a modern day band that do that, the only people I can think of is maybe Arctic Monkeys, and they've had a longer time to progress through the albums. What Beatles were maybe 9-10 years before this broke. And imagine like if they just kept on making those different albums, if, you know, they were all still alive and all thingy, where it would have went then, because mature as a band, like you always do.
And I think go on now.
Well, they did really develop their proper artists, and that's what I think could make them really. I'd be really fascinated to see, especially Lennon and early Paul McCartney, to be around at the ages they were now, because I don't think if they were then going to release something now, I don't think it'd sound like the Beatles. I think the reason that the Beatles sounded like the Beatles because it was so fucking different to everything else. I think they'd find something else. I don't know whether they'd be in like, I don't know, spearheads in the EDM scene or where, do you know what I mean? Or whether they'd be like creating a completely new genre just in a bass. Yeah, just ravers. John Lennon with the shades in the air, like it would be still doing the same amount of drugs. Like I do just think though, like I think they'd just find a different avenue and just be like, right, I'm going to paint this a completely different fucking color and change it up, mix it up, make it the best thing you've ever heard. They're so fascinating.
It's just as well, just how many like quality songs they actually made. you know, there's a lot like, you know, you can listen to a few of them and like that you think like this is actually the same artist as like what I've been listening to like for, like I was saying before, like things change, but they just, you only have to listen to how many bands are inspired by the Beatles to know that like what the Beatles meant to people.
Yeah.
Not everybody's going to have the same taste, so that'd just be boring, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Like
For
we
sure.
wouldn't do this if we all had the same taste.
Yeah, but I think it's interesting that you take so much from them, and I think even like you said with Callow Youth, you're striving to be original and not just be the same. And I guess it's that similar vein of trying to come up with something that's now not been done is really hard, but it's, you know, someone's got to do it, and you're on the right track, I think, especially with the new one. I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I think it will upset a few people that a lot of old songs may, like, you know, we might not sound like them anymore. But we're just always like wanting to try new things. Like you remember like good indie bands, like that's fine. But like with the music we've actually got now that people like haven't heard, we know that it's like we could be like trying to strive to being like the best band instead of just another good one.
Yeah. I like that. I think you're
becoming good artists.
Not like saying like I'm saying right now we're going to be as big as the Beatles were to everyone, and this is how we're doing it. But it's more interesting. It's more interesting like how they did it. Like us trying new things as well. Like many bands just like they'll go into the studio and they'll record and put the track down. But we just kind of like to sit there and just try new things that, like, you know, maybe they have been done in other songs, but we'll like to bring like a random bit of feedback technique that Slipknot used. But then I really like that chord change in that Tom Odell tune. You know what I mean? It just, and if you end up putting them all together, trying new things and stuff, it ends up being more rewarding than it is just like going in there. This is our song that we played, and this is it done.